Hi there, my name is Toby, and on this channel I talk about spinal alignment, body dynamics, and chi energy, the life force. And I just want to share with you my simple ideas about these things. Now, this can all be boiled down to a very simple structure that I call the neutral stance, and this is the form that the body would take if it were floating in space and it could achieve total relaxation. Now, this is a very unusual, a very odd position, and if you look at it, it looks quite comical. It actually looks quite goofy, but it's very primal, very primitive. It's like a monkey or a wild man, a gorilla. But don't forget, it's based on floating in space. There's a real thought about this. And you see, when I lever forward here, again, it looks quite odd, a bit like the fetal position. But what I'm doing is actually creating force in my hip joint. So here, when I'm levering forward, I'm projecting the hips backwards, and this is allowing a lever in the hips and a power from the hip joint itself, the tendons. And you see here I'm twisting the spine. I'm trying to maintain a neutral spine. The natural S-curve in the spine. There's a slight backwards arch. And that's what makes us look a bit odd. But it's very, very powerful. It's very efficient. That's why I call this wild man kung fu. You're looking a bit like a gorilla or a wild man, a Neanderthal. But the reason is logic. See, logic is this is the midpoint of all movement. If your body could find this neutral stance, like you were floating in space, it can move in all directions from it evenly. I can collapse inwards, I can twist left and right, I can expand outwards, but I can do that in all directions if I hold this neutral stance. You see, if I stay in another position, an extended position, it's very hard for me to move all the way back to the other way. So the idea of this martial arts, and in fact all this body efficiency training, is to maintain this neutral stance, this mid position. This midway position of all movement. It's very, very efficient. But there's another thing I'm trying to do. You see, I'm trying to use the bone structure itself. If I can find this neutral stance and hold my bone structure correctly, I can use the tendons, the ligaments, and the tendons and the ligaments, these control the joints. Now you can see me doing this here. I'm doing a bit more powerful martial arts. And it's not really martial arts. This is still just body dynamics. I'm trying to find powerful structures with my body. I call this structural isometrics. And I'm holding the power in this structure through tension. It's isometric tension, but the tension is in the tendons, not so much the muscles. And I'm focusing very carefully on trying to maintain a neutral spine. And at the same time, I'm spring loading both the hips and the shoulders. That's why the hips are projected a little bit backwards and the shoulders are lifted up and pulled a little bit backwards. See, not only is that the mid position of the hips and the shoulders, this allows me to create an elastic recoil. I'm holding that position under tension. That means when I move away from it, I spring back to it. So now I'm moving about a bit more loosely, a bit more relaxed, but I'm still trying to maintain this structure, this basic position. I move away from it and spring back to it. So I'm trying to create an elastic power, or what I call structural isometrics. Now, I was having a chat with one of my good friends that I train with, and he gave me a very good observation. You see, if you can get this structural isometrics, this power in your body, it's a bit like having an exoskeleton. We all know now, we've seen the movies, you can have this exoskeleton, a suit that you put on outside your body, and then whatever you do becomes very, very strong. You're only doing a little bit of work, but the exoskeleton adds power to your movements. You become very strong because of this exoskeleton. Now, what we're doing here, what I'm trying to do, or trying to explain to you, is create this exoskeleton, but it's inside. I'm creating power inside my skeleton, so it's an introskeleton. I'm creating an introskeleton and using that introskeleton to create power and movement. It's very hard to get your head around this, but people have done internal martial arts. I've spent many years training internal Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Shaolin, and all sorts of internal trainings, all different types of Qigong, not only from China, different parts of the world, Indian yoga, all sorts of stuff. And I've worked this out from all that training. It's not quite the same. You see, it's not quite the same as what they're doing. I'm looking for the ultimate optimum structure. It's got to be natural. So the neutral stance is natural, completely natural. Remember, it's the natural body or position would create if you were floating in space. That means there was no gravity acting on you, and you could achieve total relaxation. That means there's no internal forces, there's no residual tension in the body moving your body out of alignment. Now, the trouble is, we're not floating in space and we're not totally relaxed. So we have to create this position. We have to find it and hold it. And that's what this training is about. Now, if I can do this, and I create this isometric tension and this efficiency of moving from this structure away from it but back to it, then it's as if I've got this intro skeleton. It makes me very strong. Now here again you can see me do it. I'm holding a larger, a bit more stretched out position, but I'm concentrating very much on holding a strong spine and just moving the spine and stretching out to the arms and the legs. So this is all freestyle. Everything I'm doing here is freestyle, but I'm trying to do freestyle martial arts. I'm trying to do movements that I'm imagining is fighting. So these are practical movements, at least in my head at the time. But it's just shadow boxing. And you've got to realize I'm not saying that I'm a master. I'm not even saying that I'm a fighter. I'm saying that I'm talking about body dynamics. I'm very passionate about this. I've trained all this, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of body dynamics. And I'm looking at optimum body dynamics, and that is the neutral stance. Now, like I said, different martial artists will tell you something different. For example, internal martial arts, Tai Chi, they tend to tuck the pelvis under. I'm projecting my pelvis slightly back. I'm keeping a slight backwards arch in the lumbar spine, but I'm holding a strong waist. Now here I'm curving the spine a bit. This is a bit more like a snake. But you see, holding this position allows my spine to remain neutral, and from a neutral spine I can pivot more effectively. So this backward arch allows me to twist left and right more effectively. But I do move the spine around, as I did in that last section there. So I hope this made sense. Please do go back and look at this whole series from the beginning. It is a bit odd, and you can also think of this as monkey kung fu. And monkey kung fu is well known, but this is a bit more than just monkey kung fu. This is optimum structure, wild man kung fu. And the wild man, the primitive man, naturally held this powerful natural body position. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and look forward to seeing you in one of these other videos.